So welcome back to some more live toolchain development here. I think I got this somewhat sorted from the previous video. Hard floating point. Turns out when we switch to this march, those somehow do not. I mean, I read this, but I somehow thought like they can't like mean it. This is kind of stuff where I would really wonder what they're doing. So I say right here, like, and so previously for decades we used this Cortex and so on, all those CPU variants. And I said it in that video, and I said again, I find this versions and CPUs, not only like ARM 11 being ARM version 7 or whatnot, super annoying mess, and also and all the options and extensions, and it's kind of worse than x86 complex mess that is dead. But I read that here that day when I added, so that I added that new the other week, because I always found it annoying to build for Cortex A8 when you have a slightly different CPU, but they are of course compatible and stuff. So I switched to this more logically meaning of similar to x86 4, 5, 6, 7, 86 and stuff in AMD 64. So it turns out those don't have like floating point enabled. Like what are they freaking thinking? I mean, everyone wouldn't like everyone. I understand this is like in ARM, ARch jargon, optional features, but like also they have like FP and no FP. It's like why is FP not the default? It's, I don't know, that is so silly. So I guess that is it, because when I added with float equals hard or something, GCC was complaining that architecture doesn't have, or CPU doesn't have floating point. It's like, so yeah, I YOLO that also. I added, what I did is hard code that obviously too. If you choose any of those, you get SIMD and floating point and SIMD by default. So the other stuff you would need if you want other stuff. So yeah, for now I do here FP and whatever that is. So that is vector floating point version 3 for ARM version 7. This is so stupid. It is so silly. If you would, yeah, I mean the possibilities are endless. By the way, do they have here ARM version 8? By the way, do they support ARch 32 with ARM version 8? Are we in the, yeah, I mean you can still have 32. Anyway. So yeah, let's, while we test building that, so that is building there. Epic thread ripping through that here. I also found this morning, the one thing the data doesn't do is at times those updates, but did I mark them? So yeah, we have your amazing bug fixes, because obviously the recurring constant is change and regression and bug fixes. So lots of minor integer 128-bit integer vector costs, tiniest stuff. I'm not entirely amazed that if you go here and go to this is this modern stuff right there. It's like why is this so annoying? They don't list any changes. It's like do why, and they don't even link it here. It's, yeah, we get amazing software for free, but is it so much to ask? I mean, here they at least link this to their discourse, but I mean, why do they not link it here? And you need to Google that. It's like, yeah, but sure, you find them. It's like it's a little. I mean, I understand you see live on this channel, right? Everything takes 5 minutes. It always looks like one link, but this are also hundreds, if 10,000s of people. But anyway, so some last minute updates. Nothing like test building that and then deleting all the builds and test building that again or so. So while we wait for that, let's 15 or whatever we have here currently, and let's math update that. Also, by the way, I should probably check how many working copy changes I have in here right now, which are of course some. Let's probably use another working copy because you can never have too many of those. It looks better. Should have old config that, but so let's do the usual update dance here. 15.0. $15.02 we have. And does that look legit? Probably that looks good. Then cut delimiter space field 5, I think. While read p do update to 15.3 done. Let's hope that, of course, Epic is thread parallel that. Let's see how many drop frames we get. And then we need to test build that too. Remove here for Sapphire Rapids. Was it there too? Interesting. What other changes? So, yeah, the small little complex x86 and ARM details. What do we have in? Somehow the formatting here is quite different for some reason. Oh cool, someone complaining deprecated command line path we ignore. Let's hope it builds for us though. I mean, maybe we should test build that in one. So that would be, oops. No, let's do that twice just for the little bit extra testing. Otherwise I would commit this here untested, which is obviously not what we like. I still do that. All right. This didn't update the cached version there. So what that basically does is we download this. Also, yeah, a little bit. Nothing like running 8 download things parallel there in your shell. Obviously, I can live with that. Certainly not ideal. It looks a little bit funny, but who cares, right? So I do that again in the only cleaner, not cleanest. And I will only test build the later one. So actually, maybe we should actually, don't we? Because this was the shell sub process, we don't have the background there. Just we should slightly, maybe this downloaded, not that we have parallel clobbering downloads. So let's do that here as well. That probably should be instant because we have the downloads already. Okay, so now we have already reaching, as we built that here on a not only highly optimized T2 Linux distribution, but also Ryzen 7950X overclocked and curve optimized and stuff. We're already approaching that, so I wonder, it builds already quite a minute. Actually, maybe that works already. So that would be the previous live stream an hour ago. I guess previously it errored out more instantly. So apparently ZQuirks fixed that. And also take note that, as I mentioned in the previous video, not only like all the packages take extra configuration options different from GCC and Clang, and then Clang needing additional options where GCC needing additional options where Clang apparently derives that from the Arch triplet. It's a mess. It's, yeah, the only constant is a mess and stuff. So 15.02b, let's control C that here. Then we immediately continue the ARM 5TE. I also had to change that. Apparently ARM 5T does not, GCC does not support plus FP for whatever reason. Not really sure why, but I will not research that. It's like T means more extension. I think it's was it vector? This was DSP extensions. ARM version 5 DSP. The only constant is the total mass of 5TE. ARM version 5 with DSP extensions. I don't quite get why. I mean, maybe there's a reason or it's just a bug. I would think ARM version 5T, T for thumb. And theoretically this is TDMI for thumb, debug, eyes, TD and M for fast multiply, TDMI, thumb, debug, TDM, fast multiply, eyes. I would think that has floating point. TDMI. I said I will not research it, and then the next minute I research it. 5 TDMI. But whatever. Since of a floating point emulation get statically. Whatever, I guess. I use TE for now until we get a build error the next time. So actually we just built Rust there, I think, because one Rust. So yeah, unsuccessful woman YouTuber fixes Rust. Perfect Rust, GCC, LLVM Clang. Let's see when the, but I guess that should mean that Clang and GCC are enough in sync. We will see if this also, I changed Mesa again to enable all drivers, so maybe this also enables a handful of more Mesa drivers that we previously had to disable. I remember last week when I was wondering why ARM version 7 didn't allow neon extraction. That probably was why it wasn't enabled enough. Yeah, and then we will have LLVM Clang. So theoretically, I wonder if they are versioned enough, so that would be risk 5 for test. Actually, maybe we better check the file lists of LLVM. And so how far do they, so they do not version them that much. Okay, so we can simply rebuild those. So it's, I will not wipe the whole builds because there is a limit of how often, even with an epic third ring that was a later state of the art x86, of how much I will rebuild here for 32 hours. So let's just wipe all LLVM builds, because we are going to update those, right? Theoretically though, LLD, and what else do we have? We have Vasi, that is theoretically only lib, and actually the only thing is that I think there was some strange thing that build errored with that being installed, but let's see. Nothing like rebuilding even more stuff. So yeah, Perl of course previously fixed to cross-compile. But that's how we do toolchain development here. And I guess then finally this weekend, hopefully we can finally release T2 2210, just 14 days late. Let's see. Welcome. Happy to hear your public transport Wi-Fi also is. What do you mean is network infrastructure? Do you mean Wi-Fi there? Hotspot? Sounds amazing. We certainly have the same issue of our office doxes being a burning pile of garbage. By the way, so as I remember, I built ARM version 2 for you, right? Which CPU was it? And does it have, is it ARM version 5 TE? Or does it not have this DSP extensions? Still wonder which instructions that were. But anyway, so, all right, tech info. Data did just update that. Maybe we, what is even failing there? I was already thinking it's not a good idea. To update that. Tools GNU lib. Maybe we have some hotfix in there. Build native tools using the host compiler. Let's see if that is still needed. If we're super lucky, that's not needed anymore. Oh wait, why do we rebuild that? All right, we just, okay, fine. A little bit of extra testing. We just deleted that behind the back there of that testing. Nothing like building that twice. But that's what we, I mean, we theoretically, you know what, let's touch that. Just had built that ARM version 7. LLD, yeah, this doesn't build long. So yeah, that's basically it. And then we can continue with more interesting stuff. The only problem with this Thermo Max here is that the last drops stay inside there. Actually quite more than drops. And then if you take it out, then it usually drops on my shirt. So, LLVM down. I think we skip that too. Because we wanted to test build tech info. So, yeah, it looks better. Probably the question is, does it make sense to, because there's always one more thing, right? Does it make sense to add AArch ARM8, AArch64 to the options for someone who desperately, I mean, for x86 I stopped because it's just so pointless to build 32-bit code for Zen 4. But I don't know, do we need that here? I mean, some ASCII characters don't cost much, right? Maybe, I guess we can add that. But this ARM options really get out of hand. It's just silly. And why I would personally JIT it, right? I recognize that I'm not a fan. And I will also make a more microkernel and talk and design videos on the Moment channel anytime soon. Do we have ARM version 9? Oh, we have this already. Amazing. But why don't we have that with a... Did I forget to... Did I forget to copy and paste that apparently, yeah? Nothing like proofreading. Why is this? Ah, maybe I deleted the dot stuff and Apparently I probably deleted all the dot stuff, and that is probably how. Nothing like some typo. So yeah, okay, that still fails. Maybe just tools. Could, by the way, probably move that into our... Okay, we had both there actually, so... Yeah, but I'm really not a fan of stuff not cross-compiling, and I even more... did I say not a fan? I'm so not a fan of stuff not cross-compiling, and... Let's see if that... And ever-changing stuff, right? You quirk stuff. I mean, I understand they improve their code and clean up and add new features, but after 25 years, I can tell you it's getting old. That stuff doesn't build. Okay, fine. I guess we revert that for the time being, because there is only so much time I spend. Oh, there's also cross-build, build, and... So yeah, so much to having an AI deleting all your hotfixes and crossfixes. So I guess that's for this live stream too, so LLVM Clang. But yeah, people always, it's basically documenting how much work it all is, right? People always say things they get open source for free, and they rather spend $8 a month for some blue verified checkmark, when you could also, what stops you from supporting your favorite open source project with $1 or $2 a month? That certainly makes quite a difference if some people would support this crazy endeavor here. Anyway, yeah, stuff is more building. Should we? I mean, we could, by the way. But do we build this with? We built this with 32 threads, because when it certainly is helpful to keep our bloody LTO. So let's see what happens if we Clang now. Where's our what is the name of this? Okay, this just got deleted behind our back. All right, automation. So, VFP registers. In version 1, do we get the same for... Some 2, actually, VFP version 3. No, I just got deleted again. stuff is building too quickly. But I mean, we could actually, you know what, we could scroll up. So actually, we could not scroll up because, I mean, we can scroll up, but it's a little bit further. So 7a version 7, v3 neon version 1, v3 neon version 1. So ABI, VFP registers, ABI, amazing stuff. Now only Rust needs to build, which probably it will. And we have, due to all those changes, so that also means, actually no, it may not mean, it may or may not mean I need to power up my PinePhone or any other of my test systems. So due to the nature of these changes, I can't be sure what we previously built. Also, it's so much of a mess. The more I work with this stuff, especially, I never really liked ARM because ARM was always this mess of versions and extensions, and the only constant there was incompatible CPU features and extensions and stuff. And that is even more than the x86 generations of 3, 4, 5, 6, 86, and then the now AMD 64, Intel, what even was it? What even was the name of that? EMT64 stuff? Extender, whatever, doesn't matter. And now what we now have this hardware caps of x86-64 version 1, 2, 3, 4. It makes so no sense to statically build binaries when everyone has another CPU. Even in latest, take like Intel's last gen had AVX 512, Intel's current gen desktop does not, if it's fused off and stuff. And then even latest AMD has it, and last Epic Threadripping generation not. So it's like, yeah. Or current gen AMD desktop and server has AVX 512, but current gen Threadripper, because it was 1 year late and stuff, and still using Zen 3 does not. So yeah, it's like, and it's plain silly to build. Yeah, my previous video, we should JIT everything. This makes so totally no sense. Of course, we have T2, our statically built stuff, but now it's time to move on and create the next project. There's our microkernel, JITted microkernel. Dream. So yeah, that stuff is building. I guess we can commit this. Also, yeah, LLVM Clang is building, so that means let's commit that first. Let's do that with version 3 first. Ah, wait, this was the wrong one. Shit. Obviously too many working copies. You know when you have too many working copies, when you have like a dozen. You probably also know that you work too much open source stuff when you have that many working copies. So does it look like a proper change? The final test will, of course, be in some minutes when these builds reach Rust and VASI, this root stuff. VASI for the WebAssembly, this root system interface. If you're wondering why I commit both, this is just for testing, for bisecting, right, and so on. As it's an easy thing to script packaging both, why not? And then more stuff to sort. What was glibc? I really hate local. Alright, this was... Oh, by the way, do we need that actually? It would... The question would be, does glibc now do it itself? That would be the question, but no, we built this already. Bloody stubs. I also wondered why we need this nonsense. Probably need to rebuild that. To test if we... Nothing like rebuilding that again. The only substitute for testing is more testing. And then package. So I deleted ARM version 40 because I think it will not build like that rank currently. Anyway, if you need that, send me a patch. Probably need some other conditioning, for example, for not adding floating point, but well, it was TE, wasn't it? Yeah, TE. All right. Not really sure how much worth it is, but maybe it's useful for someone. The question though, right, the crazy thing is also to, as a last word, one more thing. As crazy as I mentioned earlier, I find this ARM architectural version, and that they in GCC do not enable floating point or SIMD by default, is for ARM 64, for ARch, I should say. ARM wants me to call ARM 64 ARch 64 for crazy marketing and whatnot reasons. But the crazy thing is, for ARM version 8, the stuff appears to be enabled by default, right? So here's, and that is the crazy thing that frustrates me, right? Why is floating point at SIMD enabled for ARM version 8, but not for all the other ARM versions? It is hilarious. It's, I don't know, that is so silly. Is this, by the way, in ARch 64? Do they differ for? Yeah, I think this was Adonis just. Yeah, ARch. So this is such an underlying chaos. It's, I don't know. It's a mess. It was a mess 15 years ago, and in 15 years. In the last decade, it certainly only got worse. So that's it. All right, we have still maybe one thing. Do we still have Rust extracted there? Did I just delete that? What's the latest? Maybe I shouldn't stream 2022 live streaming text over Wi-Fi. Slowing down your decompression. So now they have TE. So changing our ARM version 5 T to TE, as I just said, fixes and also Rust compilations because they didn't have a 5 here. So this question is then also. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this much improved ARM toolchain improvements 42. Maybe I make some polls for that, but maybe ARM becomes too unimportant anyway, because otherwise would be interesting to know what you think about this CPU like Cortex. Like, do you prefer to build for Cortex A8? Means that if you only build for one thing, then it is, you can specify Cortex A8. But if you ship something to thousands, if not millions of people, or billions, you probably would want ARM version 7-A, but then you don't get floating point and SMD by default. It is silly. And I mean, the problem is also nobody knows. I mean, who knows what Thunder XT and stuff is in Cortex A, and do they even have OMAP or stuff? No, they don't. So, all right, OMAP is Cortex. That is Cortex. I think OMAP 3 is even Cortex A8, isn't it? But this is so confusing. It is. People thought x86 is a mess, but boy, have you looked at ARM. Anyway, that's it for this video. Improvements are in trunk. Stuff is building. Hope you learned something and enjoyed this. Have a good day and night. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Maybe Patreon or YouTube membership. And see you soon for all the next videos and live streams to come.